Why Geralt, hi world. This is Famergana and I'm back with another Murdle stream where in which
Geralt,
I
hi
will be
world.
solving
This is
today's
Famergana
daily
and I'm back
Murdle
with
mystery
another
puzzles. Murdle stream where stream audio seems to be working fine. Let's just mute that's in my background. Back to my Murdle. Alright. So let's solve today's daily Murdle. This one is the main Murdle. Let's do that. I'm going to use my mouse actually. As always, I like to do these without the grid. I wonder if you can hide the grid entirely. I don't think you can hide the grid. Alright, but today's mystery puzzle. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Starting today's stream is I will just quickly solve it and then go over more explanations for it. So I will still say some things. The petrified heart was how. That's how. Now we have to figure out who and where. Cranial saw was found in no cause. Black hair was found wrapped around ivory night eater fangs. So you'd have to do this. Black hair. Black hair. What's that? Vice President Mauve. Black hair. Mauve had ivory night eater fangs. Never set foot in Western Citadel, so she wasn't there. Suspect at Castle Eminence was born on June 25th. That would be a Cancer. I know my astrology, okay, but just to be sure, because they just have standard dates, not actual astrology. Yeah, back to main. Cancer. That's Capricorn. Sister Lapis is the only possibility. So Sister Lapis was at Castle Eminence, and Vice President Mauve wasn't at that or that. A torch was reflected in brown eyes. Brown eyes. Brown eyes. Green eyes. So torch in brown eyes means that it couldn't have been Dr. Crimson. Crimson had green eyes. So not Dr. Crimson. Actually, I'm doing this. Yeah, okay. I could do this faster, actually. Either Ivory Night Eater Fangs was in the Iron Palace Museum, or Torch was on the Violet Isles. We'll come back to that, but not both. Cranial Saw was found in an old castle. This is the old castle, so now we know that it's what's her name? Sister Lapis had a saw at Castle Eminence, so she's not the murderer, right? This one also didn't have the weapon, the murder weapon. Vice President Mauve didn't have the murder weapon. So it's not Vice President Mauve. It is not Sister Lapis, and we have 4 suspects, right? Torch was reflected in brown eyes. Torch. Brown eyes. Brown eyes, brown eyes, brown eyes. Green eyes. Torch. She couldn't have the torch. She has a different weapon. She doesn't have a torch. She has a different weapon. So Earl Grey had the torch, right? So that leaves one weapon. So who had the murderer? Who had the whatever the weapon that was used to commit the crime? The murder weapon. Sorry, murderer weapon was Dr. Crimson, because Dr. Crimson is the only one that doesn't have a weapon assigned to him. So Dr. Crimson is the person who did it. I actually did this quicker last night when I think, I don't know, I don't remember. Where was she, though? Okay, so Dr. Crimson, petrified heart. But let's go back to these other clues that I kind of skipped over. Vice President Mauve never set foot at the Western Citadel. Vice President Mauve was also not in Castle Eminence, right? That means Vice President Mauve was either at Iron Palace Museum or Violet Isles, and Mauve had Ivory Night fangs. So coincidentally, Mauve was either here or here, but she had the Ivory Knight Eater fangs. Either that was at Iron Palace Museum or a torch was on Violet Isles. So since Mauve is either of these two places and either to these two, and this has this either or restriction on it, condition. If Mauve was at Violet Isles, then neither of these would work as a solution, and this clue is, wouldn't work at all. So she has to be at Iron Palace Museum. She has to have the fangs at Iron Palace Museum, and the torch was not at Violet Isles. So if Mauve was at Iron Palace Museum, torch, which was Earl Grey, was at Violet Isles. That's no, not where the murder weapon was. So not Iron Palace, not Violet. Sorry, no, torch was not on Violet Isles. Actually, torch was not on Violet Isles. Torch was somewhere else. Torch was at a different place. So we've got Western Citadel, Castle Eminence, not the place of where the murder is, and not Violet Isles. That leaves us the last one. Sorry, not Iron Palace Museum. Yeah, Torch was not on Violet Isles. Sorry. Torch was not on Violet Isles. Torch was also not at Castle Eminence and not at Iron Palace Museum. That means the torch was at Western Citadel. So Western Citadel also was not where the murder took place. So murder did not take place here, here, here. Murder took place on Violet Isles. There we go. I'm pretty sure. So was he right? Yes. There we go. I actually think I did this. No, actually, I still did. I actually did this quicker today. That's so funny. Yeah. Okay, so that's how I solved it in my head. That's how you solve it in your head. It's just keeping mental track of everything. So now, if you were going to do this and it's a little too much to keep in your head, we can make notes for this. And I'll just do that. I'll just do this note-taking one a little slower, so that way people understand what's going on. Yeah, I put this here, so hopefully that shows up okay on stream in the video. No, maybe not. Let's see. We're going to split screen, though. Split view. Do this. Okay, so I'm going to do fit, and then we'll just increase the font. That's more like, excuse me. Write notes here. Is this text large enough on stream? That's a lot better, actually, I think. And it also goes with this one. So yeah, that's better. You can see the notes better. I mean, I guess I could put it at, just type in 22. 20. I mean, it's possible 18 is fine. Yeah, okay. I could also put 18, but let's do that. I mean, in case people are looking at this stream video on a smaller screen, like a mobile phone or something, there it's a little better, I think. All right, so now that I solved it, that was actually faster than I did it. I did this last night, and I think I solved it a little bit faster than last night, partially because I knew where to look, the specific order to solve it, which would solve it faster than I got. I think last night my score for this was like, my time for this was like 6 minutes. First time I solved this was 6 minutes. Anyways, regardless, so let's just read this because it's always a little bit of story, I guess. There's more story in the actual novels, but so actually, you know what? I will split this again just so I can read this out. So the puzzle is the mystery of the cancer in Castle Eminence. Once again, deductive logical arrived late to the scene of the crime. the spooky nation of Free Draconia, where a newspaper reporter had been killed. All right, here's our suspects. We've got 4 suspects. So let's start with this one, Earl Grey. He comes from a long line of Earl Greys. Yes, those Earl Greys. No, he doesn't sign autographs, but he always does have some bags with him. He is 5'9", right-handed, with brown eyes, white hair, and is a Capricorn. Sister Lapis, incredibly pious. She travels the world doing God's work, but on his dime, too. One of her habits is cashmere, and the other is spending. She is 5'2", right-handed, with brown eyes and brown hair, and is a Cancer. Dr. Crimson. She's the world's smartest doctor, according to her, and she's right. But just because you're smart doesn't mean you're not a murderer. She is 5'9", left-handed, with green eyes and red hair, and is an Aquarius. Vice President Mauve. Mauve? I think it's Mauve. Vice President of TechCo Futures. If she asks you to step into her metaverse, run away. She is 5'8", right-handed, with brown eyes, black hair, and is a Taurus. Those are all our suspects today in this puzzle. Weapons. We have a cranial saw. Just a regular bone saw. It can be used for brain surgery, vivisection, or murder. It's medium weight and made of metal. Ivory Night Eater fangs. Ancient Draconian warriors would wear these to terrify their enemies. It's medium weight and made of some poor elephant. And just drink some water. Next weapon, a torch. Good for shedding light on the darkness and for setting old castles on fire. It's medium weight and made of wood. And fire. I also have allergies. I'm an allergy sufferer. Let me just mute my mic while I blow my nose. Okay, next weapon, a petrified heart. Whoever has this truly has a heart of stone, medium weight and made of stone. Okay, those are all our weapons. Locations, 4 locations. The Violet Isles, the largest extrajudicial territory in the world, one of the last remnants of old Draconia. It's outdoors. The Western Citadel. Near the disputed border, this fortress changes hands every month at the cost of only a few battalions. It's indoors. Castle Eminence. Nobody visits the ancient castle Viscount Eminence if they want to stay alive. Also indoors. Last location, the Iron Palace Museum. This was the old fortress of the Iron Tsar. Now, it's a museum for the people. It's indoors. Okay, those are all our suspects, weapons, and locations. I like to leave it on the suspects. And these are our clues. I'll go through them one at a time and explain them. Clues and evidence. A black hair was found wrapped around Ivory Night Eater fangs. So we have to figure out who has black hair, right? And the weapon is Ivory Night Eater fangs. Right? So black hair, we did this earlier, but click through all the suspects to look for black hair, and it's only Vice President Mauve. So if I was making notes for this, we would do this, right? I would do that, and then I would write, we could just use a shorthand. Mauve had the fangs. Okay, suspect and fangs. So we have a suspect and a fangs clue there. Next clue. Vice President Mauve never set foot at the Western Citadel. So we could just also write Mauve and do the do the not equal sign. I like to use the not equal sign. Where is my... Yeah, there we go. Right? Oh, click on new equation. This way I can type in the not equal sign. \NE space enter. Put the not equal sign there. So Vice President Mauve wasn't at the Western Citadel. There's no other Citadel, so I'm just going to type Citadel here in shorthand. The suspect in Casa Eminence was born on June 25th. So I know my astrology, but in case some people don't, and also you should click on this anyways because I know astrology, but the start and end dates of each astrological sign is highly dependent on the time of the birth, which we're not dealing with in these puzzles. So her birthday was June 25th, right? So Cancer. Clearly, yeah, in this case, it's clearly in Cancer. Yeah, for example, my partner Nate was actually born on March 20th, but because based on the time of his actual birth time, he's actually in Aries. He's just March 20th. Early Aries. Very early Aries. Very early Aries. 5 degrees, he's like 0 degrees is in like less than 15 minutes. Within 15, yeah. Degrees in the sky I'm talking about. Anyways, so June 25th was a Cancer. Suspect at Casa Eminence was a Cancer. Who's a Cancer? So we'll see this. This is a Capricorn. Sorry. Earl Grey is a Capricorn. Sister Lapis is a Cancer. Dr. Crimson is not. And neither is Vice President Mauve. So, Sister Lapis. We can just type Lapis was at Casa Eminence. So now we've got some suspect and location clues too. Next clue. For a torch was reflected in brown eyes. So who has brown eyes? So we've got a weapon clue and another suspect clue. So who's got brown eyes? Well, we see Earl Grey has brown eyes, and so does Sister Lapis. Dr. Crimson has green eyes, and Vice President Mauve has brown eyes. So because Dr. Crimson is the only one that doesn't have brown eyes, we can just say Dr. Crimson doesn't have a torch. Instead of like the other way around, because then I'd be listing all the 3 suspects. So it's shorter to do it this way. I just wish there was a keyboard shortcut to do that. Maybe there is, and I just don't know it. Crimson was not a torch. Did not have a torch. Okay, this clue. Come back to this because these either or ones are always tricky. And they're also tricky to, like, well, I'll write the note for it, but they're tricky to deal with when you're using a grid. And I'll show you why in a little bit. Either Ironite Eater Fangs was in the Iron Palace Museum, or a torch was on the Violet Isles. So we've got, we have 2 weapons mentioned here in 2 different locations. So, and it's either or. It's an either or scenario. Either this weapon was at this location, or that other weapon was at the other location. So we can just type this out. We'll type fangs at... Mathematically, there's a better way to type these either or things down, I think, but I just do this. Fangs was at the museum, and or torch was at the Isles. Right? But not both. Not both. It's not both. It says either or. Okay? Cranial saw. So the last clue, I'm just put that either or one down there because it's a little tricky. And the last clue was a cranial saw was found in an old castle. The only castle mentioned in here is Castle Eminence, as we saw when we look at locations. That's an isle. This is a fortress. This is a castle. that's a museum now. It's an old fortress and now a museum, so it's not a castle even. So the only castle we know of is Castle Eminence. So you can say the cranial saw. So it's a weapon and a location. Cranial saw. Oh, did I actually type Castle Eminence? Well, that's fine because you know what? There is a, Viscount Eminence who is not in this puzzle, but it's fine. So those were all our clues written out. And we also know petrified heart was used to commit the crime. So, we'll just put this, petrified heart, indicating that that is what was used to commit the crime with the asterisk here. This is going to be our solution fundamentally, right? So if we look at these clues in the notes, so we've got Mauve has fangs, we've got Mauve not at Citadel, we've got Castle Eminence mentioned and a location. Okay, this is a person with a weapon. We've got 3 people mentioned, right? And we've got this mentioned. We also have this mentioned, right? But what was the faster way? We'll look at the weapons, right? And this also mentioned a couple of weapons. So let's look at the weapons, right? Did I miss a clue? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I have all of them. So Vice President Mauve had the fangs. Actually, no, it's not. Yeah, Vice President Mauve had the fangs was the first clue, right? And this one. This is the one. These two. Lapis, Sister Lapis was at Castle Eminence. And this weapon clue, Cranial Saw, was at Castle Eminence. So that's obvious. So at that point, that's an easy one to make the connection. So Sister Lapis was at Castle Eminence, right? And then you can just move these if you want to make it easier. Let's just move this if you want. Or should I just move it the other way? There. So now we know Lapis had a cranial saw at Castle Eminence. Mauve had the fangs, and right, and Lapis had brown eyes. Crimson was the one that had green eyes. All the others have brown eyes, actually. So, and the torch. Sorry, Mauve had the fangs, Lapis had the cranial saw, and they both had brown eyes. So the torch belonged to somebody with brown eyes, and it's not either of those two. It's the last person that has brown eyes. So we can change this clue now to write the other person in. Early Gray had the torch. So we've got Mauve fangs, Lapis cranial saw, and Earl Grey had the torch, which means that the last suspect that we saw with Crimson means Dr. Crimson. Now I'll write the full clue here, full thing out. Dr. Crimson had the petrified heart. Now, where was she? Well, she wasn't at Castle Eminence. That much is clear. But could she have been at the Citadel? And what about the other locations? Oh, there's the museum mentioned, or the torch. Okay, so you know what? Let's do with this either-or clue now. And we've got Mauve. So the either-or clue mentions the torch, the fangs and the torch. But you know what? It's easier if we go and deal with the fangs and figure out where Mauve was, because we know Mauve was also not at Citadel. So that only leaves 2 possible locations. So I said earlier that Vice President Mauve couldn't be at Castle Eminence because that's Sister Lapis. She also was not in the Citadel according to the actual clue. So that means Vice President Mauve with the fangs was at the museum or the torch, she was at the museum or the Isles. But if she was at Violet Isles, then you can't satisfy this clue with the either or, because the fangs are either at the museum or the torch is at the Isles. And if the fangs are at the Isles, then you cannot have the torch at the Isles, and you also cannot have the fangs at the museum. So it doesn't satisfy that either or clue. So the fangs have to be at the museum. And that's how you, that's where. So make notes to make it easier to help you retain the information. If you have problems keeping all the information in your head, make that clue. So now we've got lapis, cranial, casa, eminence, mauve with the fangs at the museum. Earl Grey had the torch, just for the sake of it. You don't need to do this to solve who did it, right? Because we already figured out this one. So Dr. Crimson had a petrified heart. So where was Dr. Crimson with the petrified heart? He was not the museum. He was not a casa eminence. Right? And the torch was not at the Isles. Torch, actually, we do need to do this. So the torch was not at the Isles. So the torch was at the Western Citadel, right? Because we said nobody's at the Citadel yet. So the torch was at the Citadel. That's the only one, because the torch was no longer at the Isles. That means this turns it into a not, because we figured out it was at the other one, right? Do I need to type in the actual thing? That would be our deduction, is that the torch not at the Isles, right? Because there was an either or. So the torch is not at the Isles. So the torch is not at Casa Eminence, not at the museum, not at the Isles. So it had to be at the Citadel. So that leaves Dr. Crimson with the petrified heart at the Violet Isles, and that's your solution if you were to just purely write notes. The other way to do it, you can do it partially in your head and just write down the deductions you make that are not easily referenced by looking at here, like this. Like if you want to make notes and you can't remember who had the block here or whatever, or actually, which one was complicated? This one. This one you might want to write notes down, maybe? No, actually, no. It's the ones that we have to do a double reference like this, right? And this, I guess. But that was easy to remember because Vice President Mauve is right there. So it's just like, Mauve? Like this, suspect, when it says suspect, it's not easy to reference the clue and say that it's a lapis. You'd have to remember that. So you could just write lapis, casa. I mean, I guess this one was worth writing down. This one was worth writing down. And the deductions, write down the deductions that you've made because they're not, easy to keep track of in your head sometimes. Torch and brown eyes, that one also worth writing down. And this one I wrote down because it's an either or. It's easy to reference here because they actually don't tell you straight up the name of the weapon and the location, but still kind of worth writing down with the either or, because then you can remember to cross out the one that didn't sense, which one it actually, cross out the one that isn't. But anyway, so that's your solution, Dr. Crimson, Petrified Heart, Violet Isles. Now, for sake of completion, for the full solution, let's finish that. So now we've got Dr. Crimson, Petrified Heart, Violet Isles. Here, we'll type out the whole thing in case people remember it slightly differently. I don't know why. The name is Mauve. I wouldn't remember it as Vice President or just Doctor. We've got Vice President Mauve with the Ivory Knight Eater. I swear they pick long names for these things, so it makes it harder for you to remember. Right? And she was at the Iron Palace Museum. And we've also got Sister Lapis with a cranial saw at Castle Eminence, right? And Earl Grey. I want to type Early Grey, I don't know why, with the torch at the Western Citadel. It's a lot of information to keep in your head. They do occasionally have 5 suspects, 5 suspects, 5 weapons, 5 locations. The most I've seen so far since I started doing these was 6 suspects, 6 weapons, and 6 locations to try and keep track of in your head. So that is our solution. Okay, you know, I did this quickly. It was Dr. Crimson, just with only in my head without making notes. So we got this. It was right, Dr. Crimson with a petrified heart of violet on the Violet Isles. It was Dr. Crimson with a petrified heart on the Violet Isles, Deductive Logical declared. So it's correct. I'll read this text. While Dr. Crimson protested her innocence, she could not withstand the breathtakingly logical arguments our deductive presented, and she admitted she was caught. Fools, you can't jail a doctor, she spat. Deductive Logical watched her be led away, knowing it was the last he would see of her. No, it's never the last that he ever sees any of these. And that concludes the mystery of the cancer in Castle Eminence. Okay, so let's check the full solution, if we will. We've got, okay, this is Crimson with the heart. I guess that's supposed to be it's supposed to be like a tidal wave, I guess. So, also maybe see it sort of better this way? No, not really. Oh, you can see it better. They just colored it somehow. But this is supposed to be Earl Grey with the torch, the citadel. That's like a rook. And this is supposed to be this is supposed to be Vice President Mauve with with the fangs at the museum. Okay, I guess that could look like a museum. Oh my god. And this is supposed to be Sister Lapis with Cranial Saw at Castle Eminence. I think maybe that's why they do it this way. Crimson, Earl Grey, Mauve, and Lapis. Yeah, you gotta go by the colors. Okay, we know that one's right. Now this one's Earl Grey, Torch, Western Citadel, Mauve, with the fangs at the Palace, Iron Palace Museum, and this is Lapis with the saw at Castle Eminence. Alright, you can click and share how you did if you want. So this one on stream, this is how we did with this puzzle. This is how we did this puzzle on stream when I was doing wise. Oh, there's so much space. Okay, that's fine. And you can share that with your friends on social media, or you can check out their, I guess they have their Discord group. They have a subreddit, Discord group, or Facebook group. Don't share it on subreddit. I had a bad experience already with that. I shared how I did, and somebody got huffy and pissy at it. And I was like, okay, am I not allowed to go to the subreddit and share how I did? Okay, whatever. You know, I've never really liked Reddit to begin with. It just always looks. Sometimes when I do random Google searches or DuckDuckGo searches or researching something, or I have a question about a game or something, I'll see some nice Reddit posts sometimes and people have some decent comments. But a lot of times but there are a lot of like stuff where people just don't want you to post anything. So I'm just like, okay, whatever. I think I'm getting the impression that on Reddit, people just want you to like only post questions. That's it. Discord's different. Facebook, I don't use Facebook. So, yes, you can share how you did with your friends on social media. Don't do it on subreddit. I had a bad experience. Don't do it on subreddit. You can do it in their Discord. You can do it in the official Murdle Discord. I would say a group of much nicer people than on the subreddit. I don't use Facebook groups, but I mean, maybe they're nicer there too. All right. Okay, so now if you really struggle to do this, even with just the notes, right? I'll just, let's not close that. We're gonna just go back to this. If you really struggle to do this with even with like doing it in your head and trying to do this in your head, even with taking notes down, then or just taking notes, we struggle to solve the puzzle that way, we can use the grid. And the grid is helpful. It's I consider it, a beginner tool to learning how to solve logic problems, puzzles. But I mean, it's no shame. Okay? But I do think it makes the puzzle a lot easier. And if you're like me and you're up for a challenge, go ahead and try to do all the puzzles in your head, which is basically what I've been trying to do. I'm getting better slowly. Plus, you try to do these kinds of puzzles in your head, it's actually helpful for your brain. You know, because you have to retain that information in your short-term memory. I like to call that RAM, random access memory. Maybe not quite the same, I guess. No, it is. RAM is like short-term memory. Alright, so if you struggle to do these, you can use the grid. So we could do this if you're doing this with the grid. So read these clues. Black hair was found wrapped around ivory night eater fangs. Right? Earlier we figured out that Vice President Mauve had black hair. So we can go, this is Mauve, and she had ivory night eater fangs, which is this icon. We'll do that. Okay. I don't know why they hide that. Why? Doesn't really make much of a difference. It changes. It just takes away from the colors. The colors. I like colors. And should be that. Vice President Mauve never set foot at the Western Citadel. I don't normally, you know, when I do penny press logic problems, by the way, penny press is has magazines. This is what I grew up with. I grew up with stuff like this, penny press logic puzzle problem magazines. That's what I grew up with. So when I was doing the penny press ones and got to the really complicated ones, you know, I discovered that the grid wasn't great for helping with some of the clues, and we will see that shortly with this one. It's not great for helping us with that. So I don't really like using the grid anymore. Plus it's easy to make, well, with this one it's easy to make mistake because the first thing it gives you is the next. You have to remember, click twice to get the check mark. But so Vice President Mauve never set foot at the Western Citadel. But I see why they want you to click it and give you why first click gives you X, because you don't want to accidentally guess that's this, say this is it when it's not. So Vice President Mauve never set foot at Western Citadel. Western Citadel was this one? Yeah, so you put an X there. The suspect in Castle Eminence was born on June 25th. As I said, that's Cancer. It's we discovered Sister Lapis is a Cancer. So Sister Lapis, June 20, was in Castle Eminence. Castle, that's this one. So check mark. Torch was reflected in brown eyes. Torch was reflected in brown eyes. 3 suspects have brown eyes. 1 has green. So the torch was not with the person that had green eyes, which we figured out, which we looked at and realized was Dr. Crimson. Okay, skip this, come back to this in a bit because it's not so easy to put in here on the grid. Well, maybe it is actually. Ivory Night Eater Fangs. Either Ivory Night Eater Fangs is Iron Palace Museum or Torch was on the Violet Isles. You could put question mark. Ivory Night Eater Fangs could have been Iron Palace Museum. So you can put question mark. Or a torch was on Violet Isles. Maybe you can just do the question mark for this one. I never did that with using the pen and paper penny press logic puzzle. And I never did the question mark one. I mean, so much erasing too. You can do this. Torches on Violet Isles. What does that mean? Just thinking about this. Then does this clue actually mean that the torch cannot be an iron? Yeah, this actually does mean that. Ivory Night Eater Fangs cannot be at Violet Isles. Because then the torch wouldn't be there. And this wouldn't be there. So yeah, okay. So you could say that was not at Violet Isles, yeah. And you say the torch was not at Iron Palace Museum as well. Because if the torch was at Iron Palace Museum, then this condition wouldn't work and this condition wouldn't work. Like you couldn't satisfy either or there, so both would be wrong. So you can't say a torch was not at Iron Palace Museum. So you actually can't put that as an X. So you can do that. That's what you could do with that clue, actually. I just realized. But with the notes, I actually like it this way, the either or. Well, I changed it, but it wasn't either or. Cranial saw was found in an old castle. So we don't know who has the cranial saw. It was in an old castle. At least not yet. The only castle we know of is Castle Eminence. Cranial saw, Castle Eminence. So through that, we deduce some things, right? And the petrified heart was used to commit the crime. So we're looking along this thing. Petrified heart. So using the grid doesn't make... Wow, this grid doesn't make it... Well, it does make it quite a little easier. So now we know crimson was either this or this. But let's go across with these clues. This one. Right. Actually, we go mauve. Go back to mauve. You see that, yeah, now that I put this clue in, it said that she can't be there. Or we could do this one. We'll do it the way I would put it. So this one, Castle Eminence, is Sister Lapis. Castle Eminence, you can put this here. Right, that actually does it. And then now you've got this. Now we know that Crimson had the heart. Right? And you know that he has that. So that gives you your answer pretty quickly, and you don't have to fill out the rest of it. But we can. Let's fill out the rest of it. So now we've got this, and you see not here. So not here and not here, right? So going across, this is, so we're going down this way. Right, in this one. So this one shows she wasn't here. Mauve with the fangs was not there. So Mauve had to be at the museum. And so Ivory Night Eater Fangs was in the Iron Palace Museum. We've discovered that. We deduced that this time. So the torch was not at Violet Isles. Torch not at Violet Isles. Torch was at this location. And then we've got this. So now you've got the full solution. If you really want, you can fill out the rest, but you only need to get either all of this or all of this to get your full solution, right? But again, well, also if you do this, then you can make sure you didn't make a mistake. Okay, so again, we can just check our answers. Torch. Yep. And Mauve with the fangs. That's the museum. And Lapis with the saw at the castle. And that's your answer for that. Alright? Alrighty. Did we do well? I hope everyone's, if you're following along with this, hopefully you got the same answer. Okay, so let's go over. Let's now go over to the mini. Where's something for the mini right here? Let's go over and do the mini now. All right. I'm going to just hide this. You can keep the hints on if you want, but I'm going to hide it. Logico never forgot his first few cases, but that was only because he never forgot any of his cases. However, this one was particularly memorable. So we've got three suspects, weapons, and locations. Laptop was clearly used to commit the crime. You already know how. Fingerprint was found at parking lot A. And that belongs to Dean Glaucus. Dean Glaucus was in parking lot A. graduation court, not at parking lot B. Let's remember Dean Glaucus. Skip that. Comrade Champagne had not been by the big cement cube. These are pretty easy. Those are clear. What's this say? This says Admiral Navy brought a game board. Admiral Navy brought a game board. Admiral Navy game board. Glaucus parking lot A. Glaucus didn't bring the game board. Or rather, wait. Admiral Navy was not at parking lot A. Why are we looking at that? The weapon is a laptop. Okay. Okay, Glaucus not at parking lot A, and Champagne was not at the big cement cube. So that means Champagne was at parking lot B. Parking lot B, Champagne parking lot B did not have a graduation court, and he also could not have had a game board. So Comrade Champagne actually had the weapon, then that's the only one left. Not at the cement cube, and not so you were in the parking lot B. I said that earlier, I just briefly forgot. It's like I told you, keep things in your head. It's so hard sometimes. So that's how, well, I'm sure about my deductions. This one you just read backwards. Admiral Navy brought a board game. Okay. So was he right? Yeah, he was. So didn't actually have to look at the cards for this one actually. It was Comrade Champagne with a laptop at parking lot B, Detective Logical declared. While Comrade Champagne at first protested his innocence, the entire faculty approved Logical's reasoning. This was one of Logical's first cases, and it helped him develop the skills he uses to this day. And that concludes Detective Logical and the case of the distracting machine. All right. And again, you can show how you did. You can see the full solution. But so we had the full solution, right? So we've got Comrade Champagne laptop at parking lot B, which means Admiral Navy brought a board game, and he wasn't at parking lot A either. So Admiral Navy board game, he would be at the big cement cube. And that means this Dean Glaucus parking lot A had the remaining weapon, which was the graduation court. Yeah. That's Dean Glaucus graduation court, parking lot A. Big cement cube, board game, Admiral Navy. Okay. So let's try to do this. Let's just try to do this. I'll go over the story for this one after. Or I guess I just did really. But you know, we could read these cards. Let's read these cards. Admiral Navy, the firstborn son of an Admiral Navy, who himself was the son of an Admiral Navy. He always smells faintly of the sea. Right-handed, blue eyes, brown hair, Cancer, 5'9". Dean Glaucus, the dean of some such department at Deduction College. What does he do? Well, he handles the money, for one. He is 5'6", right-handed, with brown eyes and brown hair, and is a Virgo. Comrade Champagne is a communist and a rich one. Comrade Champagne likes nothing more than to travel the world, sharing the message of the Reds while sipping on the finest sparkling wines. He is 5'11", left-handed, with hazel eyes and blonde hair, and is a Capricorn. Doesn't actually say it's a he. Doesn't say Champagne's a he. Well, Those are suspects. And the weapons was one was a board game. The rule book is 120 pages long, and the box contains 460 different tokens. It is medium weight and made of paper and plastic. I really, really like this one. This one. This description is actually funny to me. A laptop. The machine you work on. It's connected to every distraction ever made. Oh, okay. It's medium weight, made of metal and tech. A graduation cord. Let's see. It would be an honor to be strangled by one of these. It's lightweight and made of cloth. Yeah, they use the dice for the board game. Locations. The big cement cube. This is a big cement cube that was supposedly donated by an early alumnus. It's indoors. Parking lot A. This parking lot is incredibly expensive and within walking distance of Old Main. It's outdoors. Parking lot B. This parking lot is only mildly expensive and it's a 45-minute bus ride to campus. And it's outdoors. Alright, so now let's solve this. Let's solve this with using our making notes. So this fingerprint was found at parking lot A. We discovered that was Dean Glaucus. We can do that again, just to be sure. Dean Glaucus, in case I forgot. So we can write Glaucus. Let's just type A. Graduation cord was not a parking lot B. Type B. This one is Navy, Admiral Navy, so we can say Navy brought a game board. I don't know why I said game board. Why don't they just say game? Because clearly brought the whole game. And champagne. Oh, another not big cement cube. He was not the cube. We could say cube, I guess. And the laptop was used to commit the crime, so we'll do this. Oops. Laptop. So, like before, so now we can look at this. We've got location and location mentioned, but this is a not one, not at that location. We've got mentions of the suspect and a suspect and another suspect, actually. Well, they got 3 locations. We've got 3 locations mentioned, but they also, yeah, 3 locations mentioned, but 2 of the locations are not at those location things. But this is suspect and location, suspect and location, suspect and game board. So let's go with the suspects. So Glaucus's parking lot A could, right? He could have a laptop. Navy had a game board. So Glaucus didn't have. Glaucus parking lot A. Champagne was not the big cement cube. I think it's this one and this one work well together, right? Because both of those mention both. Was that clue 1? Clue 1 and clue 4 both mention suspects and locations. So Glaucus was a parking lot A. Champagne was not at the big cement cube. So Champagne was not at the big cement cube, but also not at parking lot A. So Champagne was actually at parking lot B. Right? So good type. We could erase that, but let's just write it separately, actually. I mean, we could erase it, but then in your notes, you want to see all the names of the locations. Champagne was B. Okay, Champagne was parking lot B. Champagne did not have a game board, and he didn't have a graduation cord. So, he had the laptop. Okay? Not the game board, not the graduate. Yeah, so Champagne had the laptop. So Comrade Champagne, parking lot B with the laptop. And now we can continue to fill the rest of this, complete the rest of this. Dean Glaucus didn't have the laptop or the game board, so Dean Glaucus could only have the graduation cord. The graduation cord was not in parking lot B, it was in parking lot A. And the last one, Admiral Navy had a game board, wasn't in parking lot B or A. He was at the big cement cube. I always say he, but I don't remember if Admiral Navy was a she. And that should jive with this. Comrade Champagne, laptop parking lot B. Dean Glaucus, graduation court A. Admiral Navy, game board, big cement cube. And also, if you just read through the clues after you solve it, or actually if you get all of this done and read through all the clues, you'll see that it fits, right? Dean Glaucus, parking lot A. Graduation cord was not a parking lot B. Admiral Navy brought a game board, yeah. Comrade Champagne had not been by the big cement cube, no. And a laptop, so finally a laptop was used to commit the crime. So that's how we solve that. The mini Murdle with by making notes. Oh no, can I not copy that? Let's copy that just so for the stream, so people can see how we did on the mini Murdle on stream. Alright, so let's try to solve this using the grid. Let's solve this using the grid just so people can see how that would work. Right? So let's back to the suspects. So using the grid, Dean Glaucus, parking lot A. This is Dean Glaucus and parking lot A. Check mark. Graduation cord not at B. Graduation cord not at B. So we need more to be able to put those two clues together. Admiral Navy brought a game board, so Admiral Navy, and then game board. They put dice. Okay. Right. So Admiral Navy brought a game board. He wouldn't be at parking lot A. Admiral Navy not at parking lot A, right? You could also do that. We'll just go through the clues first. Comrade Champagne had not been by the big cement cube. Actually, no. We did this. Fingerprint. He was at parking lot A. Graduation court not at parking lot B. And then Admiral Navy brought a game board, so it couldn't have been A. Do that. Yeah. And then Comrade Champagne had not been by the big cement cube. Comrade Champagne not by the big cement cube. Right? And we've got our answers. We've got some answers. Some deductions we can make. Right? Comrade Champagne. And that's actually how I did it before in my head as well. And with the notes, we figured this out. Right? So then Comrade Champagne was actually at parking lot B. And Admiral Navy was at the big cement cube. Admiral Navy, big cement cube. Now, then we also have this and this, right? So that means parking lot B at the laptop. And that is actually your answer. Comrade Champagne with the laptop at parking lot B. Graduation court, parking lot A. And for completion, there you go. So that's it. That is how to solve these two daily Murdle puzzles. And yeah, these are the ones I grew up with. So, just for fun, let's check today's marot. Murder Tarot with Inspector Aretino. Turn over 3 cards below and learn what Inspector Aretino predicts for your day. Comrade Champagne laptop parking lot bait. What? That's the same as... That's actually the answer. Today's Murdle solution consisted of Comrade Champagne, a left-handed Capricorn, which suggests you have a sense of... Well, I guess that was the solution for the mini one. Which suggests you have a sense of fairness, and a laptop, which corresponds to some mysterious action. Yeah, I'm going to be streaming, doing another game stream later, so mysterious actions there. This will lead ultimately to parking lot B, generally signifying an uncertain outcome. If you do not desire this outcome, avoid anything resembling a laptop, metaphorically today. Didn't we have the same thing last time I looked at the marrow stuff? I'm not going to say all of life's answers can be found in the marrow, but all life's questions can be, Aretino says, as he rifles through the deck. Additional information. A left-handed suspect represents the paths of chaos, rebellion, and anarchy. This is not a day to toe the line. Generally, a Capricorn suspect corresponds to that part of you that is disciplined, responsible, and or self-controlled. Should be, yeah, self-controlled. Or to those aspects of your life. A laptop is part of a tiny resort town, which generally signifies taking a break and or the uncanny simulacra. Simulacra? Finally, parking lot B is part of Deduction College, which generally signifies learning and I think they're missing a D here, deduction. And that's the marrow for today. And today's marrow. Hey, I tried to share it. Wait, how do you share the marrow? It's not letting me. That's not right. That's all it says? Okay, never mind. I thought you could share the marrow. I tried clicking draw 3 more. It didn't work. I'm disappointed. Alright, so let's go back up here. That's how we solved this one. I'm gonna not end the stream with that showing there. We'll do this. That way we don't have any spoilers on the thing. Oh, wait. Okay, you know what? Let's just clear that then. Let's do that. Whoa! It totally disappeared. Just for the stream, I don't want the ends, the last scene to look like. Well, how do you? It just totally disappeared. That's funny. It totally disappeared. All right. That's it for today's 2 daily Murdles, the main and the mini. I hope you all enjoyed. It's time for me to take a break, get some food, and get ready for a game stream later on my YouTube. I'll be playing some more Death Stranding, which is not quite a murder mystery game, but there are some mysteries in the story of that game. It's intriguing. Yeah, so happy puzzling, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bedankt voor het kijken. Tot later. See you all later.